everybody, and welcome to Tim TV. I am so thrilled today because I know at least we have two people who've logged on, probably the parents of my guest artist today. Hi, Pat. Hi, Kevin. How's it going? My guest today played with us back in 2012. It's been quite a while, but his career has since taken off. He's had a recent debut with the New York Philharmonic and the Seattle Symphony. He's worked with some of my favorite conductors, including Pierre Boulez, and has recently been appointed as the co-music director of the Ojai Music Festival. He's also a great guy all the way around and a stud muffin. Please welcome the great Conor Hanick. Conor, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim. Great to see you too.
It's
nice
awesome
to
see
have
it.
more Iowa folk in my life right now.
Well, good for you. Hey, listen, thank you for saying yes. We were talking about cocktails. So, first of all, where are you and what are you drinking?
So I am in Hastings-on-Hudson, New York, which is a little river town village just north of Yonkers on the Hudson River. It's about 30 minutes from New York City. You can't quite tell because I've intentionally framed my shot with something that looks vaguely put together, but there are many areas of my home that are in total disarray right now because we just moved about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, so, congratulations. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I've been in I guess I'm still in New York, but I was in the city for almost 16 years. This fall was the start of my 16th year, which is all the really veteran New Yorkers in my life say that if you've lived there for 16 years, then you can officially call yourself a New Yorker. I feel like that timeline gets pushed back depending on who you're talking to. But so I guess I was almost there, and now I've abandoned my countrymen or something like that. But it's been a lovely move, and my wife and small baby, his name is Willem. He's a year and almost 2 months now. Needed a little more space. Dogs needed a yard. Classic suburban story.
Yeah, well, you may be living sort of in New York, but you can't take the Iowa out of you because of, obviously I'm not going to share this, but you still have a 319 area code, baby. Good for you.
True.
Hey,
that is true. Sticking strong with the Verizon family plan from middle school. Yep. Everybody. I mean, frequently is like, who is this? 319, what's that? Iowa.
Yeah. It's right next to Idaho. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Big city Columbus, right?
Right. Well, I'm shaking.
But that was my long-winded way of saying that it's been impossible for me to get out and purchase the ingredients to my favorite cocktail, my go-to at any respectable cocktail joint, the Vesper, which I know you're a fan of too.
That's what I'm mixing right now, but I can't hear you. I'm shaking. I can't hear you over my shaking.
But I have a very, very delicious double IPA from a Vermont brewery called Zero Gravity, which I will also crack open with you.
Very nice. Well, I was offline. I told you that my martini glass broke on the way over here, so I have to use this. So here's to you, sir. Cheers.
Hey, cheers to you as well, and all that are there. And if it's only my parents, all the merrier.
So I wanted to talk to you about a whole lot of things. So recently you were interviewed in the New York Times, basically talking about your experience as an artist in these pandemic times. So tell us a little bit about that article, how it came by, and then I'm going to follow up with one of my takes that I found really interesting in what you said in that article.
Yeah. So that was an article that I was approached about by Anthony Tomasini, who has turned into sort of a friend over the last few years. I mean, he's basically heard me play every big high profile concert that I've given in New York, and has been really generous with some of his praise. And I just really respect his take, and really appreciate his support. And he reached out to me. This was probably the very end of March, early April. And, he, like, I think a lot of the arts and leisure staff of the Times were like, what are we going to write about? What are the musicians of our city doing? What is the future of our arts culture in the city. And for this particular article, it was about what happens or what has happened to people kind of early in their career, just after you've started gaining a little bit of momentum, and then this total shutdown and unplugs happens. And he followed around a few people. Janai Bridges, who's a remarkable soprano, and somebody I've collaborated with previously, was the other sort of counterpart in the article. But I know he spoke to a handful of other, artists about my same age and in a similar sort of career trajectory. Sure. Though to me, these people are like superstars, and so I was very humbled to be a part of this this crew. But the gist of the article was like, what are you doing? How are you dealing with it? How has this affected your career? How do you regroup? What are the projects that have kept you busy? And basically just like taking the temperature of this group of musicians of like, what now? It was honestly like it was a pretty dark period.
Sure.
I think for everybody, but that was, I mean, we started talking, we probably had like 3 or 4 conversations over the course of about a month and a half. And it was sort of the end of like, this is the wrong way of putting it, but like the sort of honeymoon period with COVID, where we all thought that, oh yeah, maybe at the end of spring,
right.
Concert halls will start opening up. Right. Oh, maybe in the summer, like our summer gigs will still happen. And it was basically the end of March that we started speaking, and it was dawning on everyone that this was going to last a lot longer than our hopes and dreams would allow. And then we spoke basically through April, which was when New York City was the epicenter of the crisis kind of globally. It was one of the most dangerous places vis-a-vis COVID that you could be. And so I was just quarantining and hunkered down in my apartment. And needless to say, there was a lot of time to think about what the future looked like. And the more I thought about it, and the more I spoke with him and, my family and obviously my wife and my colleagues and friends, it was pretty dark and no one knew what the future looked like. Though I will add the caveat, I don't know if you've worked with Jay Campbell, who's a sensational cellist, and he's part of the Jack Quartet and one of my very best friends. And I think it was in the middle of April or something like that. And we were talking on the phone. He was like, dude, how are you doing? I said, God, I got to be honest with you. I'm having a hard time seeing any silver linings to this right now. And he's like, oh, that's weird, because this is like the best period of my life. Like I haven't touched my cello in a month. I don't have any projects. Like all I'm doing is just like cooking and fermenting vegetables and like, fishing out in the, like, he was just like living his best life. He's also, a single guy and, has basically been rehearsing or practicing or concertizing every single day.
If he's a single guy, that means he hasn't bathed since.
Oh, I don't even want to know. But I was really, that really did brighten, that week of my life, knowing that, he was happy and doing his thing, and he's not the worst for wear of it either. He and the Jack Quartet have been doing some really interesting projects and, doing all sorts of things. But, so yeah, to kind of loop back to your question, it was an article that I spoke with Tomasini over maybe a month and a half. And it was basically just like a check-in, a pulse taker about how musicians like me were dealing with it, that were living in New York.
What I loved about that article is that you framed something in a light that I found quite unexpected. Musicians, classical musicians for sure, are trained for the discipline at an early age of extensive practice. And yet you framed it as a matter in your profession as an investment, as a return on your dollar now. Because I'm assuming that many gigs were canceled or postponed or in that sort of netherworld of one or the other. Talk a little bit about even though practicing comes as naturally as breathing to a classical musician, talk about the business of investing your time for a gig that may or may not pay off.
Yeah, that was a really interesting question that we talked a lot about. And obviously with these things, the nuances of your discussion with someone never really makes it into it. And so
Sure.
I think the comments of mine that ended up getting into the article were pretty broad stroke things, despite us like really digging deep about this question. And I think for him, he was framing the question as like, is there actually such thing as an investment that doesn't pay off in music? And his point was that, every minute that you spend at the piano practicing, honing your craft and, presumably elevating your art, isn't that like by definition time that isn't wasted? And I think that's a fairly idealistic way of looking at it. And to a certain extent, I agree, and I get what he's saying. But there are some pretty bare economics of it as well that I think are much more on the forefront of musicians and artists and countless other professionals. That's what they're thinking about, which is to say, an investment in a piece that you have to learn, for instance, for a concert, or in my case, I play a lot of contemporary music. And a lot of my season is made up of learning brand new repertoire, some of which is written for me. So I'm like literally looking at a score for the first time and spending, hours learning something specifically for a concert that, I will get paid for and then is out in the world. And that to me is like a pretty one-to-one sort of investment where I make my living by sitting at a piano and learning a score that, presumably I'm going to play better than anybody else. That's why I'm hired for it. And when that doesn't happen, then no matter what hours you've spent on a piece, and for concerts of mine that were canceled March through the summer and now into the fall, I've already spent countless hours on those scores, especially the ones in March and April where I was like ready to fly. I canceled probably like $1,500 worth of airfare because none of these concerts happened. And that literally was a loss on the dollar. And I guess loss on the dollar kind of assumes that you're going to make it up somewhere else. I don't know if I was going to make that up anywhere. And, I'm not bitter about it because there is a part of my brain also that feels good about the work I do. No matter if it, quote unquote pays off, or if it's just time spent thinking and deepening my, I don't know, my feelings and thoughts and abilities at the piano. So there's a little bit of both. But the degree to which that it was a real economic cost this spring and into the fall was way more real now than it ever has been in my life. And I should also mention that I'm not at all unique in this. I mean, as I was saying, I mean, countless professions, countless industries, countless people that have just been totally blank out of luck because of this thing and not paid back a cent. So it's not just musicians, it's all of us.
Sure. So I'm going to go check our chat room to see who's logged on, and I've tried something different this time. I got another video screen right here, and this is funny because I'm getting old. I just got new glasses. I can't read a word off of it. Oh my God! Oh, so no snide comments. Okay, let's see what's going on. Oh, Kathy Varney, Jeanette, Jan Rosauer, great to see you. By the way, I can't scroll the chat either, so they're basically just checking in, sending you the love, saying hello. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what happens here. Anyhow, we've been talking about practice as investment. If you're just like getting ready for a gig, how does this change your practice habits, or has it?
Oh yeah, I mean it definitely has. Yeah, it's been complicated. Is the short answer, and it's changed a lot since March. And there was a good 2 weeks where it was just like I need to just keep practicing because if I don't, I'm gonna lose it. I'll lose my mind. And then once kind of reality started setting in, and I knew that this was going to be a longer term thing. I think it allowed me to get a little bit of perspective, as dark as that was, but also start planning in a different way. And there's the added sort of labor cost of just, having a kid and having, both parents at home, working from home. And, normally I'm traveling almost half of the year, and with that off the table, there's a lot to do around, and we were getting ready to move, and, get toddlers and like almost 1-year-olds are a whole different thing. And
I gotta
so
say, what you've done in your room behind you, I mean, that's brilliant, because I'm assuming it's total chaos outside of the frame of this shot that you're in.
Yeah, I opened one door and like basically just everything. But yeah, there's always a lot to do. But I've been trying to keep up, and there's also that thing in the back of your mind that has become sort of I feel like the devil on all of our shoulders, where it's like we're never allowed to say, oh, if I only had more time to learn X piece or practice this one thing. So that kind of got to me. I mean, I cracked the binding on a few pieces that I've really wanted to learn, and just haven't really had the time for.
Lay it on us. Which pieces that you've finally gotten around to, hey, I should actually know this?
Yeah, I'm actually all of the Beethoven concerti. I've played two of them, and it's just something I've wanted to do. I think it it may have been compensating for the fact that, oh, poor Beethoven didn't get his 250th anniversary. Oh, God forbid we don't.
I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, he's gonna be okay. But I feel that loss of airtime maybe has seeped into my brain, because I've been listening and practicing and playing a lot of Beethoven this spring and through the summer. So yeah, I've been trying to learn the three concertos. I haven't played basically 2, 3, and 4. I played 1 and 5. And it's just been a total pleasure. And I've also not played Opus 109, which is the first of the last 3 sonatas. And probably my favorite of those last 3. It's
Amen, brother. I'm with you. I'm with you. About. That last movement is the reason for that. To be able to make the first movement work, it requires great genius. But there's just something so beautiful about that third movement of that.
Yeah, it's the most sort of generous and humane thing. Yeah, and I've never just had reason to learn it. I mean, if you need a reason to learn it, it just never kind of came up in my life. I played 111 a lot in my life, and I actually just recorded it for a chamber music festival in Charlottesville just a few weeks ago. And I've played 110 since college, but that was another project where I was like, I want to make the last 3 sonatas kind of part of my concert repertoire. So yeah, that a lot of that, and then I've been very slowly learning basically all of the Ligeti etudes that I haven't done. I've probably done 6 of them from books 1 and 2, and started rounding those out. And normally when I've been learning these gnarly pieces, I have to do them really quickly. I mean, one isn't often afforded the luxury of just like slow practicing for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So yeah, I mean, I'm playing them at like half tempo and just like having the best fingerings, and just like kind of, it's like kneading bread, you just sort of like figure out what the music wants to do. And it's been very, very enjoyable. And then, yeah, there are a few other kind of irons on the fire that weren't postponed or haven't been postponed yet, that are kind of coming up in future seasons. that I'm kind of getting started on too. And I mean, I I shouldn't complain too much. Some of the projects that um, probably would have been doomed if not for the innovation and uh, kind of commitment from some presenters went forward. So I was supposed to premiere, and I mean, I ended up premiering, but and it was supposed to premiere live a new piano concerto written for me by Chris Cerrone, who's a terrific composer. Um, and it was supposed to happen at Caramore as part of their summer season, which is a really fabulous presenter just north of New York City. And they all went online and kind of pared down their season, and I think had 6 or 7 online events that were live streamed in their space. And this was after New York had kind of gotten over the hump, and it was safe to, for a few people to be up there and record in their space, and then it was sort of beamed out on their website. But we ended up doing the premiere of this piece, and that lives on the internet. So it's not all bad, but
Right.
it would have been nice to put that out in the world with live ears. But
Well,
it was a great consolation.
you've built a career specializing in new music. And I find this really fascinating and impressive because if you have a ton of different concerts with different new music rep, I mean, learning Beethoven is one thing because there are these things called triads. I mean, there's a general vocabulary that's been around for hundreds of years. But there are some thorny pieces. It's not that all new music is thorny. I mean, there's lots of heartfelt music that's out there. But I mean, there's some that its language is harder to get into, but yet you have a deadline to be able to do that. What's it like learning Beethoven for the first time now that you have this ability to absorb a musical universe that is completely unlike Beethoven?
I mean, playing a lot of new music for me has been a real leveler in terms of how I approach all scores, because as you're saying, it's Beethoven. Yeah, it's triadic because it's built on a harmonic system, and because of that, you have certain expectations for the way that the harmony and the language sort of unfolds and how you move through it. And I think people that play predominantly classical repertoire, romantic repertoire, have learned a certain physical way of managing technically through a piece of music. I assume that it's the same for somebody proficient in jazz. Their brains and the way that it's connected to their physical relationship with the piano or whatever instrument, it is sort of programmed to speak this language, and that language happens to be harmonically based or whatever it may be. And I think one benefit from playing a lot of contemporary music is that speaking generally here, those scores tend to be in a kind of different language with every iteration. Obviously, there are some composers that are drawing on a certain tradition. You can see similarities and whatnot, but playing a piece by Philip Glass versus playing Schoenberg or Ligeti or Boulez or somebody like that, it all requires little different parts of your brain. And I think it has to do with a certain abstraction of the musical material, so it's not triadic, or it's not it doesn't have a sort of predictable harmonic scheme, but you're looking at it as real dots on a page. That's the note on the piano sort of thing. And I think it's trained my brain to be able to react in sort of digital abstract ways to the instrument. And then of course the hard part is translating what that means into a language, because it's like hearing Siri talk to you versus hearing Tim talk to you.
Right.
Siri is programmed to respond to an abstract programmed thing. And if you're a musician that sounds like that, you can hear it a mile away. But if you're someone that has learned a language and that has embodied that language, be it Beethoven's or Schubert's or Ligeti's, you hear it. So I feel like the more experiences I have with those languages, the more I know about what it feels like to really get a score. If that makes sense.
Cool. I'm going to go check the chat, see what's going on here.
Check the chat.
Pardon me, I got to take my glasses off here.
Please.
What's going on here? Oh, my God. Oh! Okay. So Denny Redmond was asking, what did you ask again? Oh, yeah. Do you compose at all? I mean, you're playing music of others all the time, but do you actually put it on the line and put your own thoughts on page?
Never publicly. Yeah, no one is gonna hear any opus anything from me. But yeah, I do. I'll noodle and create stuff. I mean, it's not necessarily just writing things at the piano, but my older brother and I have gotten into the habit of sharing. There are these Moog synthesizer programs now for iPhone. It's so amazing, and you can program like synthesizer music and compose in real time. And he's extremely good at it. Like some of the things he sent me are like should be on a CD. They're beautiful things, and I feel like that tickles whatever part of my brain that needs that. And it has less to do with, pen to paper, like composing something rigorous, which is partly because I know so many composers and I know the depth of that process. And I think to do it well is it's like playing the piano well. You have to commit so much.
Yeah, but to put something out there, I mean, Brahms got rid of like what? A third, 2/3 of his actual output because he just couldn't stand his own music, because he just wanted to make it absolutely perfect. And every time I try and compose, it comes across as a bad Bach chorale. So it just I can't do it. I mean, it takes a special talent to be able to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's fun to have that flip side of one's creativity. Because there's a part of recreating music that is inherently creative, obviously, and like you use your imagination and you try to solve problems and things like that. And I feel like composing, and I'm saying this as a total like novice,
sure,
not serious person, but it feels like it's that type of engagement with music, but without the pretext of looking at a Beethoven symphony or something like that. Like you sort of get to create your own rules, which is freeing.
I want to talk a little bit about the dichotomy of a professional musician, a classical musician in general. I mean, the preparation point of your life is very solitary, but the whole purpose of music is communal. Either between yourself and an audience or chamber music. So you've just been appointed music director of Ojai. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with that organization and your increasing dedication to chamber music.
Yeah, actually, that's a good context for this. So it's not just me. Which is fine. I'm part of a group of, just artists. It's musicians, dancers, composers, choreographers. One of the directors is a theater person and just amazing imagination. And we call ourselves AMUC, which stands for American Modern Opera Company. And opera in this sense is like a very sort of original sense of the word, which is basically telling a story with stuff, be it music, be it dance, whatever. It's trying to reimagine the way that one communicates art on stage, essentially. And so, the whole company was appointed music director in the 2022 season. My seasons are getting all screwed up because of this too.
Yeah.
It's a real honor to do it. And we've started talking about the types of projects that we wanted to display. And to your question, I mean, what's really exciting about that group is that it's intensely collaborative. which means that the art sharing becomes intensely communal and collective. And it's just unbelievably rewarding. I mean, the project, it's a young group. So I've done just a handful of projects with them, but everybody is so on board into this idea that, parts combined are greater, like the whole is greater than the parts, basically. And so, yeah, I think the things that we're going to do there will be really, really cool and really amazing. And yeah, that sense of collaboration is really important to me. I mean, not only with Amok, but just chamber music in general, playing with orchestra, playing basically anything where there's more than just me in a small practice room. To your point, I mean, yeah, being a solo pianist and being a recitalist is inherently a solitary act. I mean, there's so much time required to basically get your art, your craft to a point where people actually want to hear you play. And yeah, it just is a lot of time in a small little room by yourself. But it makes it so when you get to play a Brahms sonata with a violinist or a cellist, or Brahms piano quintet, or some of these like unbelievable gifts that we have in the
pretty
chamber
good
music
pieces,
repertoire.
yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, one of my very favorite performance experiences was playing the Brahms quintet for the first time, and I played it really late in my life.
Good for you.
And it was with friends in Albuquerque, which is a place that's very dear to me. And we rehearsed all week, and no one was taking it too seriously. It was just like I mean, exactly what you said. It was, the whole point was to live inside this masterpiece and to share it with people that we cared about. And I think if there's if it can be distilled that easily for a musician, then I think one should take the opportunity to feel that, because there was nothing better. I still, just thinking about it makes me really emotional for times like that. It was really nice. We'll have them again.
I think I sometimes think we miss the point as we go from gig to gig to gig to gig. I mean, it's a job. You have to prepare, but at the end of the day, what you just described, playing music with your friends, playing music
what
with,
it is.
That's what it's all about. Actually, I'm going to throw my sister-in-law under the bus. I have two wonderful nieces, and as they were growing up, one was studying the violin and the other was studying the piano, and they, as part of a great education and a well-rounded education, that was great, but they never went to concerts. And they also never really had that opportunity to, all that work that you do by yourself in the practice room actually has a point, and that's actually to play with someone else or to share it with somebody else.
That's right.
It's the whole social thing that I think in today's society that we sometimes lose track of, especially in the classical arts.
Well, and you think about so many of the great pieces that exist because they were written for friends. I mean, chamber music,
right?
Symphonies. I mean, Brahms violin concerto.
Yeah.
All these pieces. I mean, they didn't just spontaneously erupt. They were inspired by friendship. So so many of them. And yeah, it's that sentiment is like something that really keeps me alive right now.
I'm gonna go back to the chat check to see if anybody has any questions for you. Pardon me as I take my eyes off. What's going on here? No, it doesn't look like much is going on here. Oh, no questions. So do you foresee now, as you are part of the artistic driving force behind this festival, are you looking at just music, or are you looking at sort of cross collaborative events, dance and music, dance and singing, dance and acting, whatever multimedia? Are you looking at multimedia, or are you looking more just expanding the art of music?
Yeah, a lot of the projects will incorporate movement, or lighting design is not quite the right word. Basically like using environment, maybe is like a vaguer but maybe more accurate way of putting it. But basically everything will include some sort of collaborative act, be it, I mean, Matt O'Coin, who's another fabulous composer and one of the directors and founders of this group, has will be writing, I think, for all of the instrumentalists. We'll have these little, I think he's writing a series of little pocket concertos. So it'll basically be a soloist and then like 2 or 3 other members. And they will kind of be dropped throughout the week-long season. There are 3 really extraordinary dancers, Or Schreiber, Julia Eichten, and Bobby Jean Smith, who's an Iowan actually. And Bobby and I are doing a project with Julia Bullock, who is another remarkable singer and talent, based on Messiaen's Harawi, which is this hour-long, really extraordinary song cycle. So it seems like my role in this would obviously be to play the piano, and then Julia sings, and then Bobby will dance. But the beauty and the real reward of this group is that everybody is part of everybody else's process from the first time that we meet through the performance. So in other words, like the interpretation that is generated from Julia and I will be informed by the way that Bobby is responding to the music. And Zach Winokur, who's the other director, who's staging the whole thing, that will all be based on, the sort of cross-pollination between Bobby and Julia and I. And then, we in turn sort of internalize some of the choices that he is making. So it becomes sort of this Gesamtkunstwerk thing. I mean, Wagner is sort of in the air right now because Alex Ross just released that crazy book. But this sort of total art form, something that incorporates as many different elements with as many different ideas and minds and influences as possible. So it'll be more than, hopefully, you never know what's going to happen with these things, but the idea is that it will be much more than just Julia and I singing and Bobby on the other side of the stage doing like her amazing Bobby stuff. But that process is ongoing, and we'll see what happens.
Right. So many of these interviews that I've been undertaking, a lot of it's been revolving around what have we lost because of the pandemic. But I want to turn it on its head. What have you gained? How is this going to make you a better artist? And how are you going to take advantage of this time to become a better artist?
That is the $1 million question, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, to imagine all of us, and not just musicians, but citizens and professionals of all stripes. If this is not the thing that makes us question what we're going to do differently on the other side of it, then we're all lost. There's not going to be anything bigger than this in my lifetime. I mean, there's so many massive question marks. There's so many just cataclysmic events that have occurred that have turned all of our industries on their head, and to come out on the other side, whenever that may be, and to back to business as usual. If all the organizations have the exact same structure, are doing the exact same types of work, then I think it's a total lost opportunity. And that's individual all the way to to the top of all of these organizations. So all that said, that was a pretty grandiose introduction to a statement that is probably going to lack some, I don't know, it won't live up to that, because I mean, they're really, really hard questions to ask. And my sort of broadest stroke answers when I think about it is basically that the time for doing things that are half measures in terms of one's artistic priority set are over, because how much time do we have to do what we really love and what we really care about, be it make chamber music with friends, or to commit yourself to playing the creative work of another musician or another composer, or to work on collaborative projects that enrich everybody involved, or to champion the music of a composer that you feel is underserviced or underrepresented, or to commit yourself to organizations that are fighting the good fight, that are not these behemoth money wasters that are only interested in doing stuff that big, Wall Street. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get too political, but like these things, especially in New York, are like they're on the front page of the New York Times. So those are the things. I mean, I'm done saying yes to projects that
don't fulfill you,
that don't mean things. Right. I want to do things that that are going to have a lasting impact, that check all of the boxes of my priority set. And obviously to that, the harder question is to identify and think about one's own artistic priorities in a different way, and that we'll have to have another conversation about, because I'm still sifting through.
Well, let me end this session with two totally unrelated questions. One is, do you ever take time to savor the moment? So when you were sitting down with the New York Phil, before you played the first note, did you ever say, "Oh my God, I'm playing with the New York Phil"? And actually, I would have put an expletive in there, but this is a family show. So do you actually like feel the moment that, this is awesome?
Oh, totally. And it totally is. It's in two categories for me, or like when I feel myself having those moments, it's sometimes kind of what you're describing. Like you look around and you're like, wow, I'm in this space. And then you look down and it's some beautiful polished Hamburg Steinway it's just like a Ferrari, and you're like, I'm playing this piano. You look over into the audience and it's a huge audience, and you're like, I'm playing for these amazing people, or these people have come to hear me. And then you look and you're with friends or something like that. Like I totally admit that I will indulge in that moment. It's really special, and it goes back to what we were saying about like that's as much the point, on a sort of human level as anything, and it's incredibly meaningful and powerful. I've been having a lot of moments also where there's a sort of like, man, I'm lucky to be able to play this chord, or like I'm lucky to be able to get to the end of this piece, and to like have to feel something when I get to the end of the piece. I mean, I was talking about Beethoven earlier, and recording 111, which is, maybe the great sonata, certainly before the great classical sonata. And I remember recording it, and there was sort of a one take, and like go through all warts and all, finish the first movement. And then for people that don't know this piece, it's a 2-movement piece, super stormy C minor first movement, and then the second movement is C major set of variations that is based on an aria. And the first chord is just like, it's perfect. There's nothing better than sinking into that and living it and experiencing it and feeling it give back to you, if that makes any sense. So I feel like I've been having, in the absence of audiences and music making with friends for the time being, I've been leaning into those experiences a lot recently.
Good for you. So I'm gonna leave with this last final question. So the older I get, the smarter my dad becomes. You are now a father. So I'm sure your dad's watching right now. So talk to him and say, "Hey, Dad, you were right. I did not believe it when you said this."
Well, that happens constantly.
But I am now turning into you. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lifelong journey, right? To realize that there are aspects of your parents and the way that you were raised that have crept into the way that you view the world, of course, but that how you relate to your own kids. And I mean, I see it all the time in the weird, like smallest little ways. And my folks were with us recently, and I could see the way that they were with Willem. And my dad cannot resist any baby. Like, it doesn't matter whose it is, where it is. It's like, if the baby is on the other side of a restaurant, he will just like be like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real fast. And then like 10 minutes later, my dad is back there like making googly eyes at the baby. And it's been extremely meaningful for me, especially during this period, to see them relate to Willem, and to also know that there was an iteration of them that related to me that way, and then see myself sort of, mirrored back to me, and realize that a lot of my mannerisms and behaviors and goofiness with him are totally derived from me seeing the way that they are with him and how they were with me. It's beautiful. I mean, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I mean, just how amazing this time has been. Talk about silver linings, to have with our son. And as I was saying, like, traveling a lot during a normal year, and while my wife and I had sort of carved out time to be at home and be with him, we didn't anticipate literally spending every single day with him from the day he was born until he was 1 and 1 month old. I mean, that was just totally a miracle, and it's been a complete pleasure. And silver linings, we gotta take them where they are. But it's also amazing to see my parents with him, and to reflect on how that all has shaped me and who I am.
That's a great place to leave it off. I want to thank you for saying yes and joining me for this.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
Stick around, because off camera I want to talk to you about Orchestra Iowa's impending 100th anniversary. But for all of you who've joined in today, thank you for following us. And we love that you love us, but we love your money even more. So why not Venmo us? The orchestra could certainly use your support as we get through these next few months. Next week, to join us, Jane Walker, Principal Flute, is going to be my guest, as well as Principal Clarinet, Christine Bellamy, and of course David Hempel, who was our former Principal Oboist, who has since retired, but I want to see what's going on in his life. So join us back for then, and I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you this time next week. Take it away, Ed.